Relax, boys. The teller is here for UFC 297. You can all take a big sigh of relief. We are kicking off the year of 2024. We are no longer intertwined in the long 3-week layoff from no fights. We got fights taking place weekly. The teller's voice is caressing your eardrums. Things are all going very well here. Now, this card, some people have complained a little bit that it's not as stacked as some other people feel it is. It's a little top heavy, of course, with the main event of Sean Strickland and Dricus du Plessis, which is a sick fight. You guys know there's a lot of bad blood brewing. That fight's going to be ridiculous. I'm somewhat in agreement with you guys. It's not an extremely stacked card, but I am very much looking forward to the overall card just based on that main event slot. And I think some of the other fights are decently exciting. I think some of them are underrated. I'm a big Mike Malott fan. I think he has some real potential. Chris Curtis is always fun to watch. Movsar is a fighter that I've been keeping an eye on for a long time. He's getting a stiff test in front of him and Arnold Allen. So I'm a little excited about that. And some of these lesser known names are actually decently intriguing. I like the rematch of Sidey and Taveras. That's a fight that took place in Dana White's Contender Series, if you remember. A little bit of an early stoppage, but both those guys have some good potential too. And let me also mention Sean Woodson and Charles Jourdain. That's going to be a fun fight. So, we're going to jump right into the first fight. I need to say this real quick. You guys are going to like this. As I mentioned to you guys, this channel is going to be having some major upgrades taking place here in the year of 2024. I got a lot of new equipment. I'm on a new microphone here right now. I'm on a new camera. I haven't had the time. I've had the time, but I'm working on so many different things, I should say, that I haven't really been able to fine-tune the equipment, so it's going to look even better. This camera's on stock settings. There's a lot of things I'm working on. I got this, I don't want to bore you with all the details. I have this capture card coming, all this new stuff. I'm going to be a lot more high quality coming at you guys on these videos, but not only that, you're going to still have the same traditional full card prediction video like this with this setup, but you're going to start getting daily videos from me. You're going to start getting free plays coming your guys' way. There's going to be a whole new format with these videos. It's going to look sick. Wait till you guys see the new setup on these daily videos where we're just going to be talking about a variety of things, specific fights on the upcoming cards. We're going to be talking about big news going on in the MMA world. I'm going to shake things up. I promise you guys, you're going to see major growth in this channel, and you're going to see this channel kick off and take over the game. All right, guys? So thank you for everyone that's been rocking with me. I won't bore you with any more details. Just please catch me on all my social media. It's scrolling there below. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel. Let's talk the first fight.
Welcome to the show. This is the MMA fortune teller. Yeah.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.
Kicking this card off, we head over to the flyweight division. We got Malcolm Gordon taking on Jimmy Flick. Both men come into this fight on a 2-fight losing skid. I would say it's very realistic that the loser will be cut by the UFC after this fight. The flyweight division has gotten a lot more depth as of recently. Both these men creeping to their mid-30s, and they never really showed to be that promising, if you ask me. Jimmy Flick, he was kind of a submission wizard back in the day, but when you look at his strength of schedule and just what he's done as of recently, it's not looking that good. Now, remember, Jimmy Flick temporarily retired from the sport, coming off a win at that after he submitted Cody Durden, a victory that looks very good these days. It's very interesting, right? He retired from the sport after that W, had a brief hiatus, and then he returned and he was dismantled by Charles Johnson. Now, a lot of us, we have some respect for Charles Johnson, I should say. But if you really look at the work he's been doing, it hasn't been great necessarily. That was his big fight. That was his most dominant victory. He went into that fight, beat down Jimmy Flick, finished him in the first round. Then Jimmy Flick is hurt in a major way again after that against Alessandro Costa. He's finished in the second round. So there's some major question marks about the durability of Jimmy Flick right now. There has to be some major question marks. Now, what's interesting is that Malcolm Gordon has never really proven to be that dangerous of a fighter with his striking. He hasn't really accomplished much at all. You take a look at his resume. The only really legitimate victory in the octagon at that is a victory over Francisco Figueiredo. That was a fight where he wanted nothing to do with the striking of Figueiredo. If you guys rewatch that fight, he was pushing the pace with the grappling the entire fight, trying to grind out Figueiredo there, and he was able to sneak in a decision victory. Denise Bendar, if you remember that fight, Bendar was injured immediately. That fight didn't even really count. So we're talking about a fighter that really has, he's 1-4 essentially in the UFC. There's some question marks about him, but is he going to be able to test the durability of Flick? Because if he goes that route like he did in the Figueiredo fight, where he's pushing the grappling and looking to get this fight down to the mat, Jimmy Flick he's a wizard down on the mat. He has some nasty jiu-jitsu skills, and I think that Flick could potentially pull off a submission victory in this fight. Okay, if Jimmy Flick's going to get the job done, that's how I see him getting the job done. I think he has to have major success with his grappling, and probably he has to pull off that submission somewhat or at some time in the first or second round, because as they start to get sweaty and as the fight goes on, I think that Gordon has shown he has a pretty good gas tank, and I can see him just taking over this fight with volume and pressure and whatnot. I don't have that much faith in Flick at this moment. So I've been a little bit back and forth with this fight. It's a close fight. I do respect the grappling skills of Flick, and I understand that Gordon kind of plays into that, but Gordon's been more active as a fighter over the last couple of years, and he seems like he's a guy that really is more on a mission than Jimmy Flick, where there's some question marks with Jimmy Flick. So I am going to take Malcolm Gordon via decision. I think that he kind of just grinds out Jimmy Flick there. I don't know if he actually does enough damage there to get that finish, even though we have those question marks on Jimmy Flick. All right, so let's go take a look at the betting line. Malcolm Gordon right now is a -127 on Jazz Sports, opened as a -115. So we see that slight movement coming his way, which I'm in agreement with. I am in agreement with. You see on my bookie, he opened up as a -125. He's now a -140. I understand it. Again, Jimmy Flick, how can you trust him here? You're kind of banking on him to pull off that wizardy type of submission as Gordon presses. I wouldn't really want to bank on that more so than Malcolm Gordon just being a little bit more game. Also, let me just note real quick, although Malcolm Gordon hasn't really looked good over the past couple of years, he did make it to the third round with Muhammad Mokaev. Okay, so that says a little something. And again, he was finished in the third round, but he had some success too. I mean, you see him there. He's posting all these pictures of him like he actually won the fight against Muhammad Mokaev. Remember, he was finished, but he had some moments, right? So good for him. He's going to post these up, and that does say a little something. It does. And I will side with Malcolm Gordon to get the job done. As far as the betting line goes, especially as it opened up more around pick'em odds, I think there's some value there. I would caution you to target Gordon anywhere -160 and above, but anything lower than that, -155, 150 and down, I don't have a problem with it. And if you're getting even a better line, I think that you might be onto something there. We'll see if Malcolm X Gordon can show up and get that W. Now, interestingly enough, we have a hefty favorite in this matchup here. As you guys can tell, I'm not necessarily in agreement here. Jasmine Jasudavicius taking on Priscila Cachoeira. Fight taking place in the women's flyweight division. Now, Jasmine, I am a fan of her fighting style. She really pushes the pace. She's an entertaining fighter, but I do believe that she has some glaring flaws when you're comparing her to some of the elite in this division. And she's getting to that point where she's going to start to be compared to some of the elite because she's stringing off some victories. She's been she has some notable wins, and people are really starting to respect her, again, as she is the big favorite in this matchup here. Now, she's coming off a loss against Tracy Cortez. That was a fight that played out very closely. I was not a fan of her fight IQ in that matchup at all. I believe the fight did come down to that third round, and she was really walking into some shots. She made some big mistakes in that fight, if you ask me. She had moments where she could have continued to press with her grappling, and just I felt the way that she was walking into the shots of Cortez, she kind of allowed Cortez to snag that fight. But once again, she did show how tough she is. She showed that she has good cardio. And for a fighter that got into the sport later in her career, she made her pro debut when she was 29 years old. She's just kind of like a natural athlete. She has that natural strength. She really thrives in grappling positions. She rips girls down to the mat. But her striking is not polished, to say the least. A lot of flaws in her striking. Good volume, but she's there to be hit. And now you're facing a girl who maybe doesn't get as much respect as she should. And Priscila Cachoeira. I mean, this is a fighter. She has some of the better power in all of women's MMA realistically, if you want to talk about that. I mean, this is a fighter. She made her debut in the octagon facing off against Valentina Shevchenko, got absolutely dismantled, right? Lost to Molly McCann after that, and lost to Luana Carolina. Things got a little bit better for her in the Luana fight, but compared to the prior two, and then was able to start getting these big knockouts. Man, she knocks out Shayna Dobson, knocks out Gina Mazzani, knocks out Ariane Lipsky. I mean, she had 3 big time knockouts in her last couple fights. Right, she has shown that she has some power. I think there is going to be an avenue for her to land on Jasmine. I mean, how could there not be when Jasmine is so willing to walk forward and just make it an ugly fight and has low fighter IQ? There could be times where Jasmine could potentially just go the grappling route and take the easy path to victory. And she might, when a round kicks off, she might go forward looking to land some shots herself and get cracked with the shot. Okay. So you have to note that there is that possibility in this fight. Now, as I was breaking down tape on these fighters, I will say this: there was a good example of some fight math that we could look to that points towards Jasmine's way. If not everyone's a big believer in that fighter math, but Jasmine did just have a recent victory over Miranda Maverick where she looked very good in that fight, had a lot of success with her grappling. Miranda Maverick is a very good fighter, but I will say this: Miranda Maverick at times has been a little flaky with how she shows up to specific fights. All right, she needs to get her head straight. But Jasmine had a lot of success with her grappling. And then you take a look at Priscila's last fight where she was just pretty much dismantled by Miranda Maverick, right, and was eventually submitted in the 3rd round. Miranda had a lot of success getting that fight down to the mat. When you break down the tape on those 2 fights, it does point towards Jasmine being able to walk across the cage and really have success getting the fight down to the mat. And it's a very realistic possibility that she could pull off some type of sub or TKO and do some damage down on the mat there. And even if it goes to the judges' scorecards, if Jasmine survives, it's very likely that we're talking about a decision victory for Jasmine. All right. So, but that all being said, though, with the potential danger that Priscila has on the feet, and not even just for the knockout, but maybe just landing some big shots and solidifying some rounds with the damage, I am not crazy about this betting line. Let's take a look at it. On my bookie, Jasmine opened as a minus 375 favorite, and she's now a minus 450. I would not want to be targeting Jasmine at a minus 450 line at all. That's just how I feel about this fight. So I really do feel the value is on Priscila here, especially if you're catching her at plus 342, like she is on Jazz Sports, anywhere towards the mid 300s. This is a woman's flyweight fight. You have a fighter that's this much of a dog that potentially is a much better striker. You have the grappling question mark, but still, I mean, if you want to take a small stab on that, I think the way to go is with Priscila. Again, not throwing too much shade towards Jasmine. I like her. She needs to fine tune a lot of aspects of her game. She just kind of has some nice intangibles with the pace she pushes with the pace that she pushes and the strength and all that. But give me Jasmine to win a decision, a grueling decision with the grappling. But I think that she runs into some damage in this fight, eats some shots and whatnot. We see some blood on the canvas. Sam Patterson rightfully jumping up in weight, making his welterweight debut, coming up from the lightweight division with the 6'3", very, very rangy frame. He's taking on Yohan Lainesse here. And now this is going to be a little bit of a test for Sam Patterson. I'll tell you what, Sam Patterson drops the ball in a major way in his UFC debut when he's knocked out about in a minute of cage time in that fight against Yanal Ashmaz. That was a horrible loss for him. Also, when you break down the tape of him in that Dana White's Contender Series fight against Vinicius Sensi, even though he eventually got the submission victory in the second round, he did eat some shots early in that fight, and I have some question marks about his defensive skills standing. I really do. Now, facing off against a guy like Yohan Lainesse, who has proven power in his hands, that could be a big issue for him. Yohan Lainesse is a fighter, first and foremost, out of just 9 victories, he's a fighter that has 6 knockouts, okay? And also coming off Dana White's Contender Series, really, really made a statement when he knocked out Justin Burlinson within a minute and 37 seconds. So I do think there's a very realistic possibility that Yohan Lainesse gets that knockout in this match here. Now, on the other hand, Yohan, he is coming off a loss against Mike Malott, who we will be talking about later, was submitted, I believe, with an arm triangle choke there. I think that Sam Patterson potentially has the avenue to take control of this fight. If he can get this fight down to the mat, I don't want him playing the striking game too much. If he can make this more of a grappling-based fight, I think that Sam Patterson has some pretty decent BJJ skills in his back pocket. So I think he has an edge there. But if he's going to go tit for tat with Yohan, I think he's going to face some danger. There is the potential as the fight goes on later and later, especially. I think Patterson might have a little bit of a cardio edge. And with that length, I think that he can kind of use that to potentially outpoint Lainesse, but he's going to be playing with fire throughout this entire fight. I'm going the knockout route here. I am. I think we see an exciting knockout victory for Yohan Lainesse here. I think he's kind of due for one of those types of victories. He's still only 31 years old as well, even though he kind of has an older look to him. He's definitely going to be looking better and better in these these more recent fights. He's cruising into the prime of his career. I think he's going to be sharp here. He's going to be very hungry coming off that Mikey Malott loss. Wasn't really able to show what he's about in that matchup there. And the Darian Weeks fight, he potentially lost that fight as well, but got some good cage time in there. 15 minutes battling with Darian Weeks, who's a little bit of an underrated fighter. He was cracked in his own right and finished by Gabriel Green. I don't really see Patterson landing that big shot and hurting a guy like Yohan Lainesse. I think Lainesse, he's pretty durable there. So Sam Patterson's going to want to go that BJJ route, in my opinion, and Lainesse is going to want to look to keep this standing and make it a slugfest. And I think that Lainesse is going to have that ability to do that. Fight in his home country as well. Taking that into consideration, the Canadian fans will definitely be backing him here. I'm going Lainesse to get that first or second round KO TKO. That's kind of what I'm seeing with this matchup here. That will really get the card going, and we'll be excited there. So Yohan Lainesse right now, he's a minus 145. The action is going towards his way. Opened up as a minus 130 on my bookie. This is kind of similar to that Gordon fight that we talked about in a sense. Similar line, and I'm kind of having a similar feeling about it. You want to be on this line a little bit earlier. You don't want to be taking Lainesse as a minus 160, 170. That's not. There's no value there in my opinion, because there is that threat of the grappling and whatnot, and also take into consideration now that Patterson's going up in weight, he may be a little bit more durable, right? Not cutting as much weight, so maybe he can take that damage and then eventually clinch up or get this fight down to the mat where he could have some success. So I went Lainesse. Honestly, even minus 145, you're almost too late to the party. 150 and up is too high for me. You want this more minus 130, 135. So see what line you could shop on that. Otherwise, maybe stay away from it. Otherwise, maybe shop maybe an under or a knockout TKO prop on Yohan Lainesse. Go that route. If you can get a more value type line, I could easily see a knockout coming here. But get a value line there. That should be a fun fight. Gillian Robertson, always with the strawberry custard milkshake vibes. Taking out Polyana, Viana, fight taking place in the strawweight division. This is a good matchup. This is going to be a fun one. Gillian Robertson, still only 28 years old. All right, she made her UFC debut when she was just 21, so she's been around for a while. And although she's taken her fair amount of losses in the octagon, I think it's worth pointing out that she's taken losses to high caliber fighters, right? Recently she had a loss to Tabitha Ritchie, went to a decision. She lost to JJ Aldrich, an underrated fighter in my opinion. Don't mind these grappling matches, but it is also good to see that she has constantly been involved in these pro grappling matches. And that is her strength, right? Her grappling is without a doubt her strength. I think that she can give so many fighters problems. And in fact, I think she can give Polyana Viana some problems down on the mat. Losses to Miranda Maverick, Talia Santos, Macy Barber, Myra Bueno Silva. All right. And so you understand what kind of losses she's taken. Cynthia Calvillo back in the day. Even had a loss against Hannah Goldie, which I think that they're now good friends. That was her debut, I believe, her pro debut. Just so a lot of recognizable names. Even her UFC debut, she lost to Barb Hanchak. That's a fighter that was kind of an OG in the game. She had a lot more experience. So her losses are not that alarming to me, even though she's 12-8. She's had some big victories as well. And now the issue with this matchup is I'm not a big fan of Robertson's striking. I still feel her striking hasn't caught up to her grappling, to say the least, and I think that Polyana Viana has an edge there. If this fight strictly just took place on the feet and it was a kickboxing match, I'm going to lean towards Polyana Viana's way. I think that she's underrated there. She has some underrated power. She's scrappy. She's rangy. And she also has some sub skills and some grappling skills, but I don't think that she will be able to hang with Robertson there. And I think that Robertson, I think Robertson's going to be able to pull off a submission in this fight here. You take a look at Polyana Viana's last 2 losses. She was subbed, in her last 3 losses, she was subbed twice. She's coming off that submission loss against Jasmine Lucindo, very promising up-and-comer. Had that knockout victory against Junyu Frey, kind of noting the underrated power that she has. She has some submission victories over Emily Whitmire, Mallory Martin as of recently. So she's a dangerous fighter. I just don't see her pulling off a sub on Gillian Robertson. Robertson's very polished down on the mat. You see that she was submitted against Veronica Hardy. I think that was an armbar there. And we've seen Robertson pull off an armbar just as of recently. Don't be surprised if we see something like that. Maybe Robertson sets that up down in the mat. So yes, I do have Gillian Robertson winning this fight via submission, and I think that there's a great avenue for her to have success down on the mat. If she struggles to get this fight down to the mat, though, and Polyana Viana can keep that distance and that range, and the fight starts to progress, the odds of Polyana Viana pulling this fight off are going to increase. And even though this is a women's strawweight matchup, there is a possibility when Polyana Viana is in the cage that she can crack her opponent and get a finish. It sounds a little bit ludicrous to say, but it is a realistic possibility. And I just want to point something out real quick. Let me see. She had a I want to go through some of her knockout victories. The knockout over Junyu Frey, the 2 submissions we talked about. She had a knockout over Amanda Ribas back in the day as well. A first-round knockout over Amanda Ribas back in 2015 over in Jungle Fight. So she's had that natural power even when she was a very young fighter. She's kind of has that naturally. I wouldn't bank on that. Target the Robertson victory, more so the submission victory for Robertson. I think that she gets it done within the fight. We don't go to the judges' scorecards. Robertson opened up as a minus 170 favorite. She's now a minus 222. Seems like the masses are in agreement with me. I think they're aiming that route. I think that they see Robertson just dominating with the grappling and having a lot of success there. So this is another one. You want to snag this nice and early. Don't let this line get too high on you. But I like anything under minus 200 down for Gillian Robertson. I think that you wouldn't have done yourself a disservice if you're snagging something like that. Target the submission props, the under props. That's what I'm thinking. So we have a very much deserved rematch here. We got Sidey taking on Ramon Taveras. If some of you guys were questioning why this fight was put back together, I could kind of refresh what the situation was. These guys fought on Dana White's Contender Series. Sidey had that TKO finish. It was an early stoppage. The referee botched the fight, but make no mistake, Sidey landed a nice clean shot, and I would be in agreement with him when he said that he was on his way to following up that shot and finishing Taveras down in the mat. So the fight didn't take place for that long. So for those of you guys that are looking to break down tape on that fight, you can gather some information, but it's not a fight that took place for that long of a time, as Sidey got the knockout there within 2 minutes and 28 seconds. And that fight took place middle of last year, about 6 months ago or whatnot. So since then, Taveras has had another fight. He had that redemption fight on Dana White's Contender Series where he knocked out Cortavius Romeus within 30 seconds. That was a completely different type of matchup, and I'll explain to you why. In that fight, Cortavius ran across the cage like a bat out of hell, was looking to either starch Taveras or to be starched. He was willing to either kill or be killed, and he was killed in that fight. Now, Sidey has a completely different type of style. This is a fighter that is very well-rounded. He's very measured, and we saw that in the initial matchup with Ramon as well. He's very patient. He's blocking shots. He's waiting to counter. He has a very slick ground game. He's a very complete fighter. And I think that he's going to be hanging around in the UFC. And I feel that Taveras has that same type of potential as well. Taveras is a very, very fun striker, but I think he needs to work on some things, some overall things with his game. I think Sidney's the more complete fighter. Now, as we look at this matchup here, Sidey already has a W against him, right? He's the more complete fighter. So, yes, you guys are kind of catching which way I'm going with this. I'm siding the Sidey way. But I'll let you know this much. Taveras is a very dangerous striker, okay? And I don't want to overlook that Cortavius Romeus knockout victory that he had, because I know I kind of just said, Romeus ran across the cage. No, Taveras showed once again how dangerous of a striker that he is. He's a fighter that has 9 victories, with 5 of them coming by of KO. He has 3 subs as well. He is a fight finisher, but again, he's way more of a a striking-based fighter. He's very, very slick. He's a fighter that got into the boxing game from a very early age. His dad put him in boxing lessons when he was around 15, 16 years old over in Florida at Team Bulldog. I saw that. So he's been boxing from a very early age, and you see it in the cage. Man, he's very comfortable with his hands. So if he's going to pull this fight off, I think that he's going to have to clip Sidey with the shot and finish him. Of course, he could also win a decision as well. The longer the fight goes on, if this is a fight that's just kind of a war type of match, they're going back and forth. I mean, Taveras is going to have plenty of opportunities to land his shots as well, but Sidey will be more measured. I think he'll kind of block Taveras' shots more so, and he'll land cleanly as well. And I'm feeling that Sidey gets another finish here. I don't even know if it's going to be a knockout like he did the first time, a TKO type knockout. I think that he could even potentially hurt Taveras and then set up a submission. He's very polished with the ground game. He can maybe follow him down to the mat and pull off a sub. But I think that Taveras is very, very aggressive, and I think that kind of plays into Sidey getting another finish in this fight here. All right, and Taveras, out of his 2 losses, he was knocked out in both of those 2 losses. Okay, so he brings the fight. He's a fighter that either finishes you or he gets finished, and I think that Sidey, also being a Canadian fighter, he has that going for himself as well. He'll have the crowd behind him. Also, let me just note one more thing here before we get to the betting line. Sidey is a fighter, when you talk about a young fighter that's up and coming, that literally lives and breathes the fight game, this is an example, right? You may not really know what he's about, but I'm letting you guys know right now. This is a fighter that he's training 3 times a day. He lives in the gym. All he does is just take care of himself and train. So you're going to see him grow rapidly fast with his overall skill set, and keep an eye on Sidey, right? Mentally, he's going to have the edge too. He already finished Taveras. Taveras knows that he landed that clean shot on him. You got to lean Sidey. Even though I like what I've seen from Taveras so much, I got to go Sidey now. Based on all these facts. Now, when it comes to the betting line, Sidey opened up as a -200 on my bookie. We see the line going the other way, which is it's interesting, right? Because I'm telling you, even before I break down these lines and whatnot, a lot of these lines are going. The professionals are going the same way with what I'm seeing, right? Because that line's too high. The danger that Taveras possesses on the feet, you're not willing to bet a -200. Line against that danger, in my opinion. So I don't see the value anywhere with Taveras way up there. On Jazz Sports, he opened as a -193. We see it coming down. It should come down. This line should continue to come down. On Bovada, he opened as a -200, did Sidey. He's now a -175. I would like to grab Sidey. I think that he should be like a -155 favorite. Maybe a -160 favorite, just because Taveras is so dangerous and could land a big shot. But Sidney's the more complete fighter. He should be the favorite, but I'm not paying a -200 tag on that. And you're going to see a lot of people start talking about Taveras because he had that redemption fight. We know Dana White loves him. The UFC loves this kid. They like his fighting style. That's why they're giving him this opportunity at the rematch to get that redemption there. And they want to make a name with Taveras. I'll tell you that. That's what I've seen. So I think Sidey doesn't play into that, though. One of my favorite matchups on the card in the featherweight division, we got Sean Woodson taking on Charles Jourdain. You guys know both these fighters always bring it. This should be a true war. Charles Jourdain with the very polished kickboxing skills, with the aggressiveness to go with that, also has that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt in his back pocket. That is an edge that he brings into this matchup against Woodson. Woodson, though, has really been working on his takedown defense, man. These fighters have been having a very hard time trying to get him down to the mat. And it seems the opposition is always just begging to get the fight down to the mat because Sean Woodson's boxing is so polished. And then not only is his boxing so polished, but he has that 9-inch reach advantage against Jourdain in this matchup. He's going to have a reach advantage over basically everybody in the division. So he's a problem there. He puts out great volume on the feet as well. Good luck for these fighters to go in here and get the better of the striking against Sean Woodson. I would say that he has some of the best boxing in all of the UFC and in all of mixed martial arts. I would say that. Defensively, he's very sharp as well, has great head movement, although we did see him tagged in that Saldana fight. He was hurt in that fight. What did he do, though, once he regained his wits, took over that fight, and did enough to push a draw, right? He pushed a draw in that fight. I mean, that was a fight that he could have easily lost. But again, you see, once he gained his wits, you see the ability that he has, knocking out Colin Anglin, decisioning Yusuf Zalal. I know Zalal's been let go by the UFC, but take a look at his losses, and they're against respectable opponents. Zalal's a good fighter. Really handled Dennis Bazooka in that last fight there. Was submitted by Julian Erosa. That's his lone loss. How about this? Both men were caught caught with a Darce choke by Julian Erosa. You guys know Julian Erosa, the underdog king, constantly comes in as an underdog and just upsets everybody and gets finishes as well. Well, he finished both these men, so they have that common opponent there. But yes, I am a big fan of watching the St. Louis sniper perform. And Jourdain, like I said, potentially has that advantage down the mat if he can get it there and use those jiu-jitsu skills. I just think that Sean Woodson's going to be able to keep this fight standing like he has been recently. He's posted an 83% takedown defensive rate so far in the octagon. Charles Jourdain has a 16% takedown accuracy rate. I think that he's going to have a hard time getting this fight down to the mat. Besides that, Jourdain's always willing to oblige in a war in the feet. I think that he'll be willing to go to war with St. Louis Sniper. And I think that Woodson is going to get the better of the overall striking with the volume. Now, maybe Jourdain clips him with the big shot and hurts him. I would kind of lean more that way as far as seeing a finish or a big shot landed. But if we don't see that fight-ending shot, I just think that Sean Woodson's just going to be the more skilled striker. And I'm going with the dog here. I got Sean Woodson winning this fight. Has that 9-inch reach advantage, like I said. And, yeah, give me Sean Woodson to get the job done. Got that first dog picked here on the card. Only a couple fights into it. But Sean Woodson, he opened us up as a plus 150 underdog. He's now a plus 154 on Jazz Sports. So we see action going the other way. Let's take a look at what we see on Bovada. Sean Woodson opened up as a plus 145. He's now a plus 150. A lot of back and forth action there. Not a lot of movement, though. On my bookie, Sean Woodson opened up as a plus 115 and is now a plus 145. So we could very much say that the action is coming in on Charles Jourdain. And, I'm not in agreement with the movement here. So for the first time on this card, I'm not in agreement with the movement. I like the dog here in Sean Woodson. I think the value is definitely on Sean Woodson. Sit back, monitor this line, and see how high of a dog line you could target on Sean Woodson, in my opinion. If it really creeps up there, that would be great. But Sean Woodson is a problem on the feet. We got the two-time Ultimate Fighter winner, Brad Katona, taking on Garrett Armfield, a fighter that's coming off his first ever UFC victory. Let's just note the level of competition that he did just defeat, though, and Toshihima Kazama. Not really overwhelmed with the level of competition there, but you know what? He went out there and did what he should have did. He knocked him out in the first round. Before that, he was submitted. I believe it was an arm triangle choke, if you remember, that David Onama caught him with. And then his last loss before that, I believe he was hit with the rear naked choke against Mateo Vogel over at CFFC. Those are two respectable opponents, but submitted twice down on the mat. Brad Katona, a fighter that he's very polished, but without a doubt, his true strength is the pace he pushes and the grappling that he possesses. Hasn't really been pulling off a lot of submissions throughout his career and specifically as of recently. But if he frustrates Garrett Armfield here down on the mat and Armfield gets a little bit over eager to get back up, there's a potential that Armfield can be submitted here. Armfield's going to have a 5.5-inch reach advantage where I think that he could use that to have success on the feet. If he can keep that distance, I think that he has some decent boxing skills. I would say that's one of the strengths of his game. But I don't know if Armfield's going to be able to keep that distance, man. It's going to be hard, man. Katona has shown time and time again that he knows how to go out there and get a W, man. He has one of those it factors, right? He's a fighter that is like, he doesn't really overwhelm you with any specific thing other than the fact that he knows how to get the job done, just pushing the pace on guys and just kind of grinding guys out. He's still only 32 years old as well. So, really in his physical prime. Victories as of recently over Cody Gibson, Timur Valiyev. Those are respectable wins that he's been having as of recently. Also defeated Carlos Vera on the Ultimate Fighter show. Fighting over at Brave, over in Brave as of recently when he was let go by the UFC. And the losses that he had, the Hunter Azure loss doesn't look as good these days, but of course the Merab loss doesn't look bad at all. Merab's an animal. And, before that, he was doing his thing in the UFC, man. Had victories over Kyler Phillips, Bryce Mitchell, a couple other victories there as well. So, listen, if you guys remember, I was doing those recaps of the Ultimate Fighter this past season, and I said Brad Katona is the fighter that I liked least on the show. I'm not a fan of his personality, to say the least, but you guys know we keep it real here when we're doing these predictions, and we turn over every stone. And I got to side with Brad Katona to get the job done here. Now, I will lean more towards a decision victory because Katona has been having a tough time getting finishes consistently. But I said there is a possibility that Katona can string off or can hit a submission there, against Armfield. As Armfield, he's been subbed 2 of his 3 losses, and if he gets frustrated, I think there is potential there. So give me Brad Katona to get the job done. Let's take a look at the betting line here. Brad Katona, right now on my bookie, he's a -190, opened up as a -170. So we see action coming his way, and as to be expected, man, just a much more proven name in the game, I would say. On Jazz Sports, he opened up as a -190, hit -200, and then went back to a -176. So that's interesting there. The way I'm looking at this fight, I'm hoping that we see action come in on Armfield. I hope people see an avenue for him, and we see action go his way. I would like to grab Katona at a respectable line. I think that he just proves to be the fighter with a higher fight IQ and a guy that just has that experience and knows how to get the job done against a guy in Armfield that really doesn't have any standout victories to me still at this time. All right, guys, we're hitting up the main card now. We're talking some ranked featherweight action here. The number 3 ranked featherweight Arnold Allen taking on the number 9th ranked featherweight Movsar Evloev. This is a great fight. This is a great test for Movsar. Still undefeated, 17-0. He's been really patient as far as proving that he's the best featherweight in the world. Obviously he believes that. But the UFC has been kind of stringing him off slowly. He gets a victory here over the number 3 ranked fighter in the division, a fighter that's very proven in Arnold Allen. I think we're going to obviously see him get those huge fights after that, and this is a guy that could be fighting for the belt. This is a fighter that we could see facing off with a guy that he was once supposed to fight in Ilya Topuria, maybe seeing him face off against an Alexander Volkanovski. I can't wait to see him tested in that regard. And I know he's a very well-rounded fighter. One thing that he really has going for him is the grappling, though, right? This is a fighter that can take control of the fight. He can really nullify what you're trying to do by getting on top of you and controlling you, has great defensive skills down in the mat. Even though he's an inch shorter here, he's going to have a 2.5-inch reach advantage. He has a great wingspan for his height. And at only 29 years old, this dude's getting better and better. But you could say the same thing for Arnold Allen. Still only 29 years old. He's been in the UFC forever. Coming off that loss against Max Holloway, no shame in a decision loss against Max Holloway, one of the greatest to ever do it. Before that, Allen was on a complete tear. Let me remind you guys, finishing Calvin Kattar, finishing Dan Hooker, getting the better of Sadiq Yusuff, a very tough outing. And here's the thing, though. Movsar, he's not the same type of fighter as a Calvin Kattar or a Dan Hooker, right? He's not going to sit there and trade with you, man. Just rewatching the tape on those fights, Hooker was hurt. Hooker's still trying to land a shot as he's getting beaten down. Movsar, as soon as he feels any kind of danger in a fight, man, he's in on your hips. And like I said, he's going to be controlling you down on the mat. Now, Arnold Allen's not easy to take down. But if someone could do something like that, I think Movsar can. I think he can dictate the pace of this fight, even just using his footwork on the feet, pushing Allen up against the cage and just slowing the pace down of this fight. Movsar does not want to entertain a slugfest because that's where Allen could have some success. Allen has good power. When fights start to get scrappy, he with that southpaw stance, man, he sneaks in these shots and he hurts opponents. And I think if Allen's going to have success in this fight, he has to land a big-time shot in this fight. He has to shake things up. He needs to wobble Movsar. He needs to hurt him. He needs to really take control of this fight. Otherwise, Movsar will just do what he always does and just kind of control the fight. As of recently, you take a look at the work Movsar was doing. Gotta bring up that Diego Lopes fight, man. I think at the time, obviously, not a lot of people knew what Lopes was about. Diego Lopes, had that loss on Dana White's Contender Series a while back. I think he did take that fight on short notice, right? I think that was his UFC debut. And Diego really showed that he's a legitimate fighter, man. He was tricky down on the mat. But in all reality, Movsar did everything he needed to do just to control that fight. And one of the judges' scorecards went 30-27. So, before that, controlled Dan Ige, controlled Hakeem Dawodu, controlled Nick Lentz, controlled Mike Grundy, controlled Enrique Barzola, controlled the Sting, Choi. I mean, he just goes out there and, he gets these decision victories. He's not really a fight finishing type of fighter, but he's a problem, man. ridiculous cardio, comes in ridiculous shape, and I've been really praising him for a long time. I think that he has an extremely high ceiling, and I think that he's going to be able to use his grappling, his fighter IQ, and his cardio and all that to get the better of Allen here. I mean, I have to lean that way, man. I've been very high on him for a long time. Training over to ATT, he's just very, very well fine-tuned. So let's take a look at the betting line. On my bookie, he opened up as a minus 170. It went to a minus 160 line, and then it dips back down to a 180. I was a little surprised. I kind of understand why people are kind of maybe could be targeting Allen with the value, with some of those value type lines, but I was a little surprised to even see this dip. I thought we would just see Movsar kind of cruise to that minus 200 range. Let's see what Bovada is talking about. He opened up as a minus 175 on Bovada, and went down the same type of way, but then came back to that minus 175 line. So some people are liking Allen here. I understand what they're looking at. They think that maybe Allen could keep the fight standing and then use those striking skills to have success in this fight. I'm sorry though, man. I think that Movsar will just do what he needs to do to get the job done here, man. He will clinch up, he will grapple, and he will be very finely tuned in those departments, and he will get the job done here. So decision for Movsar here, in my opinion. And as far as the betting line goes, the line is not that high compared to some of the lines we see on Movsar. If that line comes back the other way too, if you're grabbing minus 160 and down, I think that's a bargain line. The action man getting back to action, Chris Curtis taking on Marc-André Barriault. Chris Curtis has been having some unfortunate luck as of recently, right? You take a look at his last fight. I had an official play locked in on him against Nasruddin Amavov. He was in control of that fight. I feel very comfortable. He was on his way to getting the W there. They had the accidental clash of heads, and unfortunately, the doctor stops the fight. Curtis really wanted to keep it going, but the doctor didn't feel that he could see out of that eye good enough to continue. So that's a no contest in a fight that he should have got a W in. And then the Kelvin Gastelum fight, if you remember this as well, that was a very close fight. In my opinion, that fight came down to the second round. And in the opinion of many, if you really check the scorecards, came down to that second round where they clashed heads. Curtis was hurt, and Gastelum kind of followed up on him, landed some shots, and they kind of gave him the round due to that little flurry there. But if you really looked at that round as a whole, besides that one moment, I thought Curtis was in control and should have got that round as well. But, you know, in real time, it's hard to see the clash, and it looks like Gastelum is just doing work in there. So I know that Curtis was really unhappy with Gastelum for just the way that played out. But if you really take a look at Chris Curtis's career, there's been a lot of headbutts going on. I mean, he's a southpaw, and he leans in when he's going in for these combinations. And I feel that if you look at his track record, it may have more been him that's responsible for the headbutts. I don't know. Just he has a history of that, and I will say that much though. So don't be surprised if we see Curtis clashing heads with Marc-André here, because Marc-André, he's really a pressure fighter. He will be coming forward, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see something similar there. So Marc-André is not nearly as much of a finesse fighter as a Curtis. Curtis is a much more polished striker. Marc is a guy that really relies on his conditioning and just really relies on just breaking guys, pushing them up against the cage and just going forward and pushing volume on his opponents. So I do favor Curtis as far as at range and those finesse type of situations. I could potentially see Curtis hurting Marc-André here with the counter shot. We've seen him do that to many inside the cage. Curtis is a real sniper, man. Had that knockout over Buckley as of recently. Had a knockout over Brendan Allen. Knocked out Phil Hawes. Even on the regional scene, dating back, throughout the years, he's had some big time knockouts over in PFL. Knocked out Andre Fiallo. That was way before Fiallo was getting knocked out by everybody. That's when his chin was still actually decent. So just understand that Chris Curtis, he has fight ending ability in his hands, and I could see him landing some shots here to potentially set up that finish. So that is the route that I'm going here. I think that Curtis can handle business. Now, Marc is no easy outing for anybody. Like I said, he does bring some intangibles into the cage. He will be 3 inches taller, but Curtis will actually have that 1.5 inch reach advantage to set up those slick boxing shots, those slick striking shots. And we also will know Marc-André has proven to be tough throughout his career. He has a solid chin. He's only been knocked out once within 23 professional fights, right? He has shown to be durable. That one knockout loss did come by way of Chidi Njokuani, a fighter that does some similar things to Curtis, setting up the shot there on the feet. So I could see Curtis potentially setting that up. Even if it goes to a decision, I think that Curtis lands the cleaner shots, inflicts more damage, and I think the judges lean his way anyway. I like Chris Curtis here. I think that Chris Curtis is the superior fighter. He's a superior mixed martial artist. So he opened up as a -140 in my bookie. We see action going his way. Seems like the masses are in agreement with me. Some decent line movement early on here on Curtis. And we'll take a look on some other books here. Let's take a look at Bovada, where we've seen a lot of up and down over here. 165, 155, 165, 155. That's a little bit strange. Let's take a look. We'll take a look over here. Chris Curtis on Jazz Sports opened up as a -148, and then we're seeing that steady movement his way pretty much as well. And that's what I kind of expected. I think that Curtis should be like a -175 to a -195 favorite, just under that 2-to-1 type of line there. Just based on the fact that if Mark doesn't get hurt in this fight on the feet, he'll push the pace and he will make this a closely contested match, clinching up and just with the pace that he pushes. But all in all, again, give me Chris Curtis to get that hand raised. I like him. I don't mind him -70 and down, -175 and down. I have no problem with that line there. Keep an eye on the movement. And Chris Curtis, man, the action man to bounce back in the win column. Two different generations of fighters here. Mike Malott taking on Neil Magny. Mike Malott comes into the UFC off Dana White's Contender Series. That's how things work these days. Neil Magny, back in his era, he comes off the Ultimate Fighter. That's how many of solid fighters came into the UFC. I mean, they really are two different type of generational fighters, really. I mean, Neil Magny, he's now, 36 years old, and he had an early start to his career. He got into the UFC decently young. He has proven to be I would say, I don't want to say gatekeeper in a bad way. He's just a proven fighter that always proved to be a top 15 ranked fighter, but never had the ability to take it to that next level. Always lost the big fights to the top of the line type fighters. And even as of recently still, I mean, that's the case, right? I mean, losing to guys like Gilbert Burns and Shavkat Rakhmonov, Ian Gary also looking very promising, losing to these high caliber fighters. The Michael Chiesa when he still was doing some work, Santiago Ponzinibbio when he was a better fighter. And these are all respectable names, man. Rafael Dos Anjos, Lorenz Larkin, Damian Maia, all respectable losses, man. And then, in the meantime, just stringing off victories as well. Victories over Johnny Hendricks, Hector Lombard, Carlos Condit, the Leech, Tony Martin, Robbie Lawler, Jeff Neal, Max Griffin, Daniel Rodriguez, even as of recently, snuck off one against Phil Rowe. I mean, there's a lot of respectable victories under Neil Magny's name, even as of recently, like I said. So don't sleep on him here. He's very rangy for the division, has about a 7-inch reach advantage here. He's very tall. He can do a little bit of it all. He's not a finesse striker, but he pushes volume on the feet and can frustrate you, and he can clinch up and he'll continuously make you work. Mike Malott, on the other hand, this is a fighter that is very unproven, I would say, but up until this point has really been passing every test that's thrown his way, right? I mean, from the moment he bursted on the scene on Dana White's Contender Series, right? He had that very quick finish within seconds over, I believe it was over the Israeli fighter Shimon Smatrotsky, I believe his name was. Just finished him up quickly. And then after that, he's just been not only getting W's, man, he's stringing off finishes in the cage, man. I was cage side for that Mickey Gall knockout victory, man. I mean, how clutch was that? Went out there, finished him within just about 3.5 minutes. That was in his UFC debut. Had a grappling victory over Trevin Giles. Then he has 2 submission victories in a row against underrated fighters, Yohan Lainesse and specifically Adam Fouguet, who's a very underrated fighter. And Adam Fouguet has a very similar frame as Magny, man, very, very rangy and whatnot. So Mike Malott has shown to be able to figure out that puzzle. And this is a big test, though. So as we get to the betting line, I'm going to say this. Mike Malott, he still needs to prove a lot more, especially when you take into consideration the betting line that he's coming into this fight as against a proven veteran, a proven fighter that's really, he's a lot more battle-tested than Magny. You got to be a little bit cautious here, but all signs are pointing to Mike getting the job done here. He has that it factor as far as going out there, rising to the occasion, And I think that he gets that from being groomed around a fighter like Uriah Faber, right? He's been being groomed in the MMA world, shoulder to shoulder with a guy like Uriah Faber, and I think that carries so much weight. I think that's so underrated. Uriah Faber, one of the more underrated fighters in the game, is just as far as his mentality goes, right? I think that he accomplished so much based on his work ethic and his fight IQ, and I think that carries into who Mikey Malott is. Remember, Mike started off as a striking coach over at Team Alpha Male, quite a while ago, and he's kind of had a patient run in the MMA world, right? This isn't a guy that's had a ridiculous amount of fights still. He only has 12 pro fights. He's 32. He's had a very patient road in the MMA world, and I think that his time is going to be in the year of 2024 and 2025. He's going to make his run now, towards the top 15, and we'll see how far he can push it. Just understand that he needs to prove more. We need to see more from him, and Neil Magny is a guy that can frustrate you. He's a guy that's proven. He's getting up there in age, but still going to come in phenomenal shape, and we've seen him have some late comebacks, even as of recently. But yes, I will take Mike Malott to get the job done here. And now, can he land, or can he get a finish here? He's been a fighter that gets a lot of finishes, 10 victories, 9 of them by way of finish, 4 knockouts, 5 subs, only 1 decision victory there. I mean, he is a fight finisher, and Neil Magny has been subbed. Just in about half of his losses, he's been subbed. He's been knocked out in 3 of those as well. So when he loses, he does get finished quite often. I think that Mike can finish him here. Neil Magny's obviously as old as he's ever been fighting in the octagon. I don't see why Mike can't find that finish here. So I think there's a very realistic possibility we see a finish in a variety of ways. Could be sub or knockout. Fighting in his home country, he's going to have the crowd behind him. You got to lean Mike here. There's just no question about it. So we'll take a look at the betting line. Let's see what we're talking about as far as that goes. Mikey Malott is a big favorite. He is a minus 325 on my bookie right now. Open up as minus 300. Let's take a look at Bovada, where he's a minus 300 right now. Open up as a minus 170. That's interesting, right? If you were early on that back in October, late October, you could have got him at a minus 170 line. If you're camping out on these betting lines, if you're able to do that's some value there. I am not crazy about this high line, the minus 300 type of line, 3-1 favorite. I'm not crazy about it because I've seen Neil Magny show up and frustrate. And although, again, Mike is the superior fighter right now and more of the prime of his career, man, if this fight gets sticky and it's in the later rounds, maybe Neil can hang in there and make it play out a little bit closer than some of you guys expect. So I'm not crazy about the very high line there, but I do have Mike showing up and getting the job done, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see that finish. We got the vacant Women's UFC Bantamweight Championship of the world on the line here. Raquel Pennington, the longtime OG of the women's fight game, taking on Mayra Bueno Silva, a fighter that's been having some good success as of recently. I'm interested in this matchup. I am. I've been breaking down a lot of tape on both these fighters, and I'm interested to see how this fight takes place. Raquel Pennington, still just 35 years old, in her mid-30s, but she's been around for a long time, okay? Came off the Ultimate Fighter. I think she was like 4-1 back then, if you remember, and she was known as a fighter that had some boxing skills, but really needed to fine-tune her entire game up. Dana White was very fond of her potential back then, if you remember, and I think that she has definitely delivered, she has delivered up to Dana White's expectations when you think about her career. She's fought for the belt already. She's battled in there with Amanda Nunes, took a lot of damage in that fight, but really showcased her toughness. She's been in there with some of the best women's mixed martial artists of all time. She had 2 fights with Holly Holm. In fact, Holly Holm made her UFC debut against Rocky, and a fight that was very close. And Holly Holm didn't have a lot of fights playing out closely back then. That was a very closely contested match, just to show you the level that Rocky was on, at points in time. And yes, she's taken losses, but look at the level of competition. Lost to Jessica Andrade back in the day. The Holly Holm debut lost there that played out closely. In the meantime, she goes out there, gets a redemption victory over Andrade. Cachoeira defeated Miesha Tate, and then she lost to Amanda Nunes. That was that championship fight where her legs were just eaten up, and the fight ends late in the 5th round, but showed some real durability. Lost to Jermaine Durandamy Remember, Jermaine was doing her thing back then. Bounces back with the victory over Irene Aldana. Lost to Holly Holm again in the rematch in a closely contested match. Holly Holm, come on, this is a much more primed Holly Holm compared to when we're talking about Myra just getting that victory over Holly Holm, which we need to talk about that victory because there's some asterisks too. That fight was overturned, if you guys remember. We'll jump over to that now. You remember because Myra Bueno Silva tested positive for taking Ritalin, and you know what? She says that she would always stop taking Ritalin Monday of fight week, and she never had a problem. This time she took it on a Monday and somehow it came up. Who knows the truth? Maybe she was starting to test the waters and take it a little bit later. Who knows what was really going on? I will say this. I've never taken Ritalin. Used to hang around with a lot of kids that were taking that type of stuff, snorting it, in the bathroom and high school and all that. Knew some kids that were taking it from a young age. I never messed with that. I'm not a big, let me not go there. But a lot of kids taking that, getting prescribed to that from a young age, whatever. But from what I'm hearing and surrounding myself with a lot of people that have taken that back in the day, there are some benefits to taking something like that. It makes you very alert and very aware, and I think that could help you in the cage. So just keep an eye on that. But as of recently, just had that submission over Lena Landsberg before the Holly Holm submission, which was overturned. So she's been pulling off some slick finishes. Submitted Stephanie Egger. She is slick down on the mat, and she's also well-rounded. Myra has some slick striking as well. And on the other hand, Rocky, good boxing, very, very skilled as well, but she's tough. And I think she's kind of underrated with how she does things in the cage. She's very crafty. And, I'm going to be leaning towards Rocky getting her hands on this belt here. I think that she's just more proven in the sense that she's fought higher level fighters throughout a longer period of time. Myra Bueno Silva's had this recent surge, and she's been looking good. But I don't know. I could see Rocky just getting the better of her here, or in a fight that plays out very closely, just edging her here. Okay, Rocky's been very good defensively throughout the years, absorbing just 3.34 compared to Myra's 4.71. Both fighters landing almost the same amount of strikes offensively. Rocky's not easy to take down and get down to the mat, so I would like to see Rocky just keep this fight standing, try to avoid the BJJ game of Myra Bueno Silva, and I believe both of these fighters, have wives or girlfriends that have fought in the UFC at one point in time, right, or still fight in the UFC, right? Tisha Torres, I believe married to Raquel Pennington. Tisha Torres, a very talented striking fighter, has that black belt in Taekwondo and all that, and obviously can share that knowledge with Rocky throughout the years. But Rocky is a fine-tuned fighter. Give me Rocky to win this vacant title. And check this out, she is the underdog here. She is as much as a plus 140 dog on some of these books. She's a plus 135 on my bookie. I think the value is on her without a doubt. I think this is a fight that is such a toss-up. I think this fight should be a pick'em. I think that this should be a pick'em line, essentially. Maybe I don't know. Maybe say a slight lean on Rocky due to the experience. I don't know. Myra's look good though too. Maybe a little bit of a finesse and speed edge to Bueno Silva, but Rocky is just, she's good with her movement, man, and she's tough. Give me Rocky. Value on Rocky, like I said, and I would be very happy to see her snatch that belt up. She's had a very long career. I think that would be just a great moment for her and for all of women's mixed martial arts. Hey, guys, real quick, just a promo. If anyone's looking to sign up for a new sports book, you guys know I always have this Bovada.lv offer for you guys. If you sign up through to Bovada.lv, reach out to me first. Let me give you my referral link. I will give you an entire month free for my official plays. You get a month package if you sign up through my referral link, and I make a little deposit there. You'll also get an added bonus to your account. If you're not interested in signing up through that and you want to work with me for my official plays, just shoot me a message and I'll give you my pricing. We're looking to absolutely crush specifically the first quarter of this year. There's a lot of plays I'm targeting. Don't be late. Reach out to me. Let's start making some money. All right. We got the main event. Sean Strickland taking on Dricus du Plessis. This fight is to see who is the king of the middleweight division. Of course, as Sean Strickland just recently snagged the belt from Israel Adesanya in a masterclass of a performance. Dricus has recently looked phenomenal as well. Just went out there, finished Robert Whittaker. He has looked to be the best version of himself that we've ever seen. I'm so excited for this fight. I love the bad blood going into it. I know some of you guys aren't as big of a fan of that kind of stuff going into a fight, but I love it. And I know there's some of you guys that love that as well. It just gives the fight that much more character and just energy going into the fight. I mean, these guys really don't like each other. I think a little bit more on Sean Strickland's part. I think that he really was heavily offended for what Dricus had to say at that press conference, where on the other hand, Dricus has proven to be a very, very even-keeled dude, a very level-headed guy. He's very slick. This guy's, he's got that little, that edge there, man. This guy, I would like to say, I would compare myself to him in some senses as like, he reminds me of a guy that has had his balls busted from a young age, man. He knows how to take the blunt of a joke. He's not one of those guys that gets worked up, that only child syndrome we see from some people that get all worked up. You know, I feel like I'm the type of guy you can go in on all you want and you're not going to get to me. I mean, I pride myself on being that type of dude, having an older brother, hanging around a lot of those types of dudes, man, playing a lot of team sports, playing tackle football, playing all that type of stuff. And just, Sean Strickland, obviously a different type of guy. I'm a big fan of his, but he's a dude that probably, I know actually from listening to a lot of his podcasts, wasn't really around. I mean, he had a brother and whatnot, an older brother, but he hasn't really been around like a good amount of guys growing up. I feel like he was homeschooled at the time, didn't really grow up, in school. He was in and out of school. And I feel like he's the type of guy, he can give it, but can't take it. And we saw that in the press conference, and that's going to play a factor in this fight. I do believe that. And I'll tell you why. I think that, like I said, I think he's very emotionally invested in this fight. We saw him fighting in the crowd with Dricus. I think Dricus has him exactly where he wants him in that sense, because if Sean isn't measured and he goes into this fight recklessly, that could be a problem because Dricus has some big-time power, and we've seen Sean Strickland finish before, getting landed on with big shots, right? In the Alex Pereira fight, got clipped with that left hook. Can't forget when Zaleski dos Santos hit him with a nasty shot, that spinning heel kick, followed him down to the mat and finished him up. So we've seen him finished in about half of his losses, I believe, or just about half of his losses. I mean, his chin isn't the most proven. Now, if there's one thing I could say about him, though, defensively, he's extremely skilled, right? We hear Joe Rogan raving about it all the time on the Joe Rogan Experience, how they have this mouthpiece that monitors the damage they take in training, and Sean Strickland just doesn't get touched. So that's one thing I will say, that Philly shell style, if he could avoid Dricus's power, he could obviously have a lot of success in this fight, but they're going to clash. And I think Sean Strickland's going to look to do the man dance with Dricus, and I think that could be a little bit of an issue if he gets hit with the big shot. Of course, this is a 5-round fight, a championship fight, so cardio is going to play a big factor in a matchup like this. One thing, as I'm breaking down tape, that I feel could be a factor, but there's something that has recently changed, is I've seen Dricus kind of breathing heavily late in fights. He looks like he's kind of gassed in there, but somehow always pushes through. I will give him that at the same time. He does push through late in rounds, but he seems like he's a little bit more tired. When I'm breaking down tape, I feel like Sean Strickland would have a major edge, or an edge in the cardio. We know Sean Strickland has as good of cardio as anybody. All he does is spar and train. I mean, he can fight forever. But it's worth noting, as of recently, Dricus had some type of nasal surgery, and he feels that it has helped him big time. He feels that now he could breathe better. He's not just breathing out of his mouth, so he's getting more oxygen intake. And I think you could expect him to be in the best condition of his life. But I still will slightly edge Strickland in that department, just because he's proven to be as good as it gets there. So in the later rounds, I'll give a little edge to Strickland. I'll give that volume edge to Strickland as well as things are playing out. But if we see a big shot landed in a fight, ending type of shot landed, I think it's going to be Dricus dropping the hammer on Sean Strickland. I've been back and forth with where I want to go with my selection here. I think that this fight is going to play out on the feet. I think these guys are going to do the man dance, like I said. Both men, the same height, the same reach. I mean, both about to be basically in the primes of their career. Dricus has a little bit more time to prime out. I think Sean Strickland is in the prime of his career right now. I mean, coming off that Israel Adesanya performance, 32 years old. He got into the sport early on. This is his prime age, in my opinion. He starts going through a couple more wars, and maybe we see a slight decline. So as I said, I've been back and forth with who I want to go with. At one point in time, I was on Dricus to get the job done here, and I do think it's very likely he can snag this belt up, landing some big shots as they clash. He's going to be marching forward. He looks so damn good in that Robert Whittaker fight. With just that size that he has as well, with the weight. I mean, after the weight cut, he really fills out. Maybe we can see him somehow get on top of Sean Strickland, but Sean Strickland has a phenomenal ground game as well. You know, we hear so many stories about his ground game, even though he doesn't show it in the cage. He should be fine there. I'm going to back my boy Sean Strickland here. I just think that Dricus looks for that big shot at times. You know, I was breaking on tape on him, and I think that Sean Strickland, if he could avoid that big shot with that Philly shell style, I think he could land some nice volume. And as the fight goes on, maybe he starts to really land some nice clean shots on Dricus. As it's a war, maybe he starts to break down Dricus. You know, we've seen Dricus finish once in his career. It was a while ago, but he was finished in one of his 2 losses, and that was against Robert Soldich, where he was knocked out over in KSW back in 2018. Maybe Sean Strickland can break him down and get a volume TKO type of situation going there. I just think these guys are going to clash, and this fight's such a toss-up in my opinion. It really is. We'll take a look at the betting line, where I can kind of give you my thoughts on that. Right now, Sean Strickland's on minus 135 on my bookie. Opened as a minus 150, so it's closing more evenly, which is what I think is what should be happening. I think this is more of a pick'em type of fight. So hard to call. I you know, at a pick'em line, I would definitely feel better taking Sean. Has that championship experience, just taking the belt in his last fight, has just a world of experience. But Dricus is not a slouch in that department too. He has his own experience. But give me Sean Strickland. I'll edge him there. And maybe it's a decision. Maybe we see them really, really clash. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a decision as well. But with the bad blood, maybe they clash. This fight is really hard to call. I think you guys see where I'm going with it. It's very hard to call. I'm going to sit back and enjoy this fight. I don't think I'm going to have action on this fight. I'll give you guys a heads up now. No action going to be on this fight. I'm going to sit back and really just enjoy this from both standpoints, being a fan of both of these fighters. I really can't wait to see who walks out as the champ. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up UFC 297. You know I got to leave you with some dope parting words. Appreciate you guys so much. As I said, first and foremost, we're taking this channel to another level, and I want you guys to take that energy I'm giving you through the mic, or just the energy you're hearing through the mic. I want you guys to take that, and I want you guys to put that into what you guys got going on for 2024. I'm serious. This isn't some some corny type of like New Year's resolution type stuff that we say every year. This is the year, guys. Let's get on it. I'm serious. You're gonna see me delivering all throughout the year with the growth, especially here in the next month or two, like I told you. So you're going to see that. I want you guys doing the same thing with what you guys got going on. Clean up with what you're doing. Take whatever you're doing to the next level. I'm serious, guys. I'm going to be following up with you guys on that in the parting words. I'm going to be motivating you guys all throughout this year, and we'll see how far we take what we're doing. At the end of the year, we'll see how far we took it through 2024. All right. Also, for any of you guys that are lacking some confidence, I got some motivational type words for you. Think about this, especially for you guys that are like undersized, and I'm sorry for some of you guys that are lacking confidence, or you want to hear a little bit of a pep talk and you're already a big dude, but this is more for those guys that are a little bit undersized or average height, and you think you got to be 6 foot and up or 6'3" to be a true alpha male. We admire these guys in the bigger weight classes so much, right? These heavyweight fighters, oh my God, take a look at them. Well, put this into perspective, man. A lot of you guys walking around 5'9", 5'10", even you guys 5'6", 5'7", a lot of you guys actually are at the superior frame, and you guys have the superior body to be a survivor, on planet Earth, man. Think about all the world wars that have been going on, right? If you're a big old 6'2", 6'3" guy, man, you're just a large target out there. You guys that are tough, and you guys can maneuver very well, throughout life, in these types of battles and whatnot, man. You guys are built a certain way for a reason, man. You guys are survivors, man. Your lineage has pushed you on to thrive, man. You're here because of what your ancestors did to survive and to survive whatever they went through, man. My ancestors have been involved in a lot of wars. My grandparents were both in World War II, really on the battlefield, and just don't think always like a 6'3" guy is this big alpha guy. If you're 5'7", 5'8", man, you're built to survive on this planet. You could be like you guys know what I'm saying. You guys know what I'm saying, right? So it's just, don't ever have any lack of confidence based on how you look, man. Feel confident in yourself. Feel confident in all your ancestors that survived through everything that they have to have you walking on earth today. A lot of people don't realize that. Think about how many generations of survivors throughout all the crazy stuff that have gone on in this earth that have put you right here walking around. All right, so you're built from a very you're built from a different type of cloth, man. And you're here, you're alive. You know, some people, you can't really say some people their bloodlines have gone extinct or whatnot throughout all the craziness, man. You're here, so have pride in who you are, have pride in your ancestors and who your family is, and just have pride in your neighbor, and be a good person. That's what I'll leave you guys with for this one. All right, guys. All right, hope you guys all have a profitable event, and hope you guys do good with your bets out there. Hope you guys enjoy your Saturday watching these fights, and we'll leave you with that. All right, guys, signing out. Teller.
Welcome to the show. This the MMA fortune teller. Yeah.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.